just go ahead and present. So actually today we are on day number 9 or day 9. Yeah, so we are going to do a bit of reading data from files, but of course the approach that we're going to use is kind of like very specific to what we want to achieve in this learning. So expect to learn a few tricks in here, tricks that should help you to learn more Python, understand at least something new, and apply it, together with the knowledge that you already have acquired through this training. Yeah, so we'll be talking about reading data from files. It should be something which is very, very straightforward, which is why I say like we won't spend much time. But of course, even the discussion that we're going to have today will somehow be related to what we talked about yesterday in some prior sessions as well. But of course, it's good to do a bit of recap of what we have learned so far. At least this for those who missed some of these sessions. So we'll just give a summary there, the stuff that we started to learn from day 1. If you all remember correctly, when we started this training, we started talking about statements, because that is like the building block of any program or any code that we're going to write. So understanding what is the minimal set of instruction that can be processed by Python, that was important. So a statement is basically an instruction that commands Python or the computer now to do whatever you want it to do. So this could be a simple thing like assigning a value to a variable. I'll try my best to also, do I have my phone open? Yeah, so I'll try as well to, let me open a new file. I don't want to mess that one. Just save test.py. Like so, yeah. So it could be something as simple as my string is equal to, something, like so. Yeah. So this one example for statement. So it's the smallest line or expression that really tells the computer what to do in Python, could refer to as a statement. And of course, in this case, what we are doing, we assign this value to that variable. Yeah. So where was I? Yeah, was here. Yeah, but also we talked about comments, and of course we said comments, these are statements, but they're basically statements which are ignored by the program. So when you put a comment in there, like in your code, by default it will be ignored. But the most important thing or characteristic of a comment is that it has to be preceded with a hash or a pound sign. So we also talked about comment. Let me see if I can go. I want to sort these guys out. Why is my Sony not in full screen mode? Sorry guys, I'm just setting things here. Yeah. Okay. Right, so I'll still need that guy. Yeah, I'll be doing this. There, but I hope you other guys, you can hear me. Yeah, so like now for comment, of course, we said they have to be preceded with that pound sign. That sign or symbol there is what will tell Python to ignore whatever comes, after it. So whatever you're going to write here when you run this code will be ignored. Actually, it has to be like that. So whatever you're going to write, even if let's say you do, because we can do print, if you remember, so we can print hello like so. Then when we run this code, we should get sorry. Yeah, I missed another quote there. Yeah, so we get hello down there because that is a valid print statement. But yeah, so you can now, if the moment you put a hash sign, even though that print statement there is an okay print statement, but it won't be executed because by putting that hash sign, you have turned that into a comment and not an instruction that should be executed. So when you run this code, we are not getting anything down here. So that's something which you must learn or understand about comments. But also we talked about indentation. and how powerful this is in Python, because Python, unlike other programming languages, it relies on indentation to organize blocks of code. And of course, this actually came to be so vivid when we were talking about control structures and functions and so on. So if you remember, we had a case where we had to write maybe if true, then print like so. Print ABC like so. So if true, now you see the print here. To tell Python that this print is actually should be executed if it is true, then it has to be appended like, indented like this. Yeah, so without doing that, if we do it like this, then this print and the if, they are all in the same, how should I put it, like, they'll all be executed whether the condition is true or not true, because this print actually is outside the if. But we said at that time, if you remember, like there's some other programming languages they'll use curly brackets like this to say, okay, now this print, since it is inside these curly brackets, then it belongs to this if. But in Python, we don't have brackets like that for blocks, so we have to use indentation to tell Python that this item belongs to that guy there. Yeah. So sorry, let me put my charger here. Awesome. Yeah. So that's how indentation is and how it works. But of course, yeah, you can work with indentation in different blocks. So remember, we also saw for I in maybe range 5 like so. Let me also move this guy down so that you can all see properly. And then yeah, so you can say print I like so. Print I, and then of course when we run this guy, something is wrong. Yeah, I'm missing colon there. I think everything should be fine now. Yeah, so we can print. So you see, again, we're using indentation to say that this print is actually inside the if statement. But of course, if we did not have that print in there, maybe let's say we are doing something here, maybe let me just use pass like so, we'll even get an error there. Actually we did not, because it passed. Yeah, so we did not get the value that we wanted, like the numbers are not printed from 1 to, from 0 to 4 as we would have expected, because now the print statement is actually outside the 4. But if we return it back there, then we get the printing, because indentation there is in action. Yeah, but also we talked about variables. Yes, this, you guys have been using them so well. I see a lot of people, like in each code that they write, they use variables. So a variable basically is just a memory location or a bag where we store a value. In this case, my string could be a variable. And of course, we use these names here, like we call them identifiers, to just help us to, point or locate that memory location. So basically, this variable here represents a certain memory location in the computer where this value is stored. And of course, we saw how powerful, and we have seen how powerful variables can be, and how useful they are when you're writing a code, because you can just refer to this name anywhere in your code, but of course, it will be substituted with this value that you had assigned to that. And of course, we saw that variables can hold not only strings, not only numbers, but they can also hold strings, they can also hold dictionaries, and almost anything, any data in Python can be kept or stored in a variable. We also talked about data types, if you remember correctly, and of course we said that we have different types of data types. We have numerical data, we have string or textual data, like alphanumerical data, but we also have some which are Boolean. Actually, we did not talk much about Boolean, but this is any data that has a true or false value. So Boolean value basically is something like this, so if I define, for example, like is new patient, so it's new patient, like so, patient, then we can give it a true value. So this is a Boolean, because a Boolean value is a Boolean variable is a variable that can, a Boolean type is the type that has only two values, either true or false. Whereas, for example, a string can have anything, or a number can have basically any number. but a Boolean type can only hold and can only assume a true value or a false value. So we did not talk much about it, but actually you have been using it. And of course, Boolean values, they become so handy when it comes to control structures, like when you're using the if statements or the for, because the condition will always be tested and the condition always returns either true or a false. So condition always returns a Boolean type of sort. Yeah, so, and again, we say that in Python, data is actually is the determinant of type. So if I say this variable, my string, and then I assigned here something like this, which is a string, then automatically the type of this string, of these variables become a string. But the same variable, if let's see if I push there 5, then the 5, because it's a number, now makes this variable to be of a numerical type. Even though I've written here my string, writing here my string does not make this variable to be a string. It's the value that you assign to that variable. But also we saw some other like complex types, or like, I don't know, more advanced types like list, dictionaries, and so. So even if, let's say, I pass here like that list, maybe 5 and 6, then because this is a list, then this data makes my variable to be of list type, and so. So the data that we assign to a variable is the one which tells what data type that variable is. But also we talked about basic operators, so arithmetic, assignment and comparison. But of course, assignment, this is what we have been using like since day one. So basically we use the equal sign, the single equal sign, to represent assignment. And what this means is take what is on the right, put it or store it to whatever is on the left. So in this case, this is the left, that is the right. So we are taking this data and storing it in this variable location or memo location called my string. And of course, the other important thing here is the fact that you can, as I just said, you can assign any type of data to any variable, but remember, it has to be a single equal operator. Of course, oftentimes it's possible to do something like this, like you may find you might find yourself doing something like this. Say, okay, I'm assigning 5 to my data. Actually, you are not doing that. Of course, that would run. Actually, you should get it's not defined. Yeah, because I did not have that actually. And actually, you see now Python what it's doing. It's telling me that my data is not defined. And the reason behind, if I had used single sign like that, that should work. But if I put double equal sign, so it means I'm trying to compare 2 different values. The value that is stored in my data, I'm checking if it is equal to 5. So when I use 2 equal sign, then that data has to be there. Like my data has to be somewhere for me to do the comparison. But the most important thing here is that the equal sign or the assignment, we use just single equal. But if you want to now start comparing, if 2 values are of the same value, then we use double equal sign for equality. And of course, there are so many other for comparisons, and we have greater, we have greater than, we have less than, we have greater or equal, greater or equal. We also have less or equal and not equal, like so, and the like. So all these, there are different symbols that we can use. So if I would have used there like that, then I'm checking if my data, the value of my data is less than 5. Then if I'm using that, then I'm checking if the value of my data is not equal to 5, like so. So you don't have to cram this, but of course, when you start writing codes, they'll just come natural, and you will remember them. Yeah, but actually remember that basic operation. Of course, we also saw about arithmetics, and so these are the plus, division, subtraction, and so on. We also touched one unique one, which probably would have been new to most of you, which was remainder. So we have that special symbol that we use for calculating the remainder of when you divide two operands or 2 numbers and so on. But then in a special way, we also talked about, we have covered strings and strings slicing. And of course, we saw that slicing actually gives us the ability to extract portions of a string. So I have my string there, I love my country, like so. I love my country, so that is a string which I have. Then with string, if I print this guy, let me use s. I hate typing my string all the time. I hope you guys understand. So this is a variable called s. It's not best practice to do this. Yeah. So print that. Let me clear this guy so that we have a clean slate there. So I love my country. We printed out that. But then, of course, we can use slicing to take portions of a string. And of course, the way slicing works, we still use, because remember, for strings, it is possible to print portions of a string. So I can use the square brackets to target maybe letter at position 0. You know, we use the square brackets, then that should give us I is at position 0, which is the first one. Then I can do maybe at position 5, what would that be? I get E, you know, so E, it is at position 5 and so on, like that. So you can actually do that, but also you can use slicing now to take portion of a string, and of course slicing comes with the columns like that. So you can say, okay, because doing it that way is the same as printing the whole string like that. So and then you can start pushing value there. So that is the value for start. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to end? And like with how much value you want to step, like from the first one to the next one. So how much do you want to jump? You know, so by default this is 1, and then by default this guy is 0, the start, and by default this guy is length of the string. So if I take the length of a string, that is ln, this should also give us the same thing. So because these are the default settings, so even if you don't specify them, Python will automatically assume the default values. That's why even that one works. But of course, you can start now pushing in. I want only from the first one, take only 4 characters, and so then you see, yeah, we get I love, like so. You can even maybe jump and start maybe from the third one and take 6 characters, and so like that. So yeah, okay. So we are taking only 3 actually, because this is the last index. So we start from the third one up to the 5th actually. So the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th, like so. And of course, you can choose to jump like so. So I can start from the first one, remove that guy, then let's go this way. So you can jump. I'm skipping 2 characters. So I print the first one, I skip the space, I go to L, I skip the O, I go to V, and so on, like that. Someone has dropped in and say, okay, why position of letter E is 5 instead of 6? Position of letter E is 5. So basically the way this guy works. I hope this is the question. I'll just do that and then the steps. So the way this works always. So the start will always be referenced from 0, and then the end will always be whatever number that you put in there minus 1. So if I put here 0, then that will start from 0. But if I put there 9, exactly, it counts even spaces. Yeah. So if you put there 9, then we won't take indices from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No, but we'll take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 8. So the end part there usually is less by 1, like that. Awesome. Yeah. So, and then of course you could have even printed that guy in reverse. That is just up to you. So you can do that. So this is how powerful slicing was in helping us to take portions of a string and use that in whichever way that we would want. Yeah. So then we also talked about collection and sequences. So remember the list, remember the tab on the dictionaries. We said both of these they are sequences that allows us to store multiple, more than one value to it, because a normal variable actually you can only store one value. So if I add s, then is equal to data, then I only have s. I can then print x again, s, like that, and we get that value. So a normal variable only stores one value at a time. But if you want to store multiple data or more than one value to the same variable and then use that or access the data that you placed in there in any way that would want, then it's possible to do that. And then of course, in that case, we start using collections. So then we saw that we have list, then we can define list. A normal list is defined using square brackets, if you remember correctly. Then we can put anything in there. And one special thing we said, in a list, you can have values of different types. It's really up to you. I've mixed numbers, I've mixed strings in there. I can even add another list in there, whatever way, whichever way that you want, like so. Sorry. Yeah, you can have it with a value. You can also include other forms of sequences, like so. It's really up to you. And of course, you can really go ahead and print that guy. You should get all the values, because it works that way. But we saw like we have lists. We also have dictionaries. Dictionaries, these ones we define them using skull brackets, and then tuples. Tuple, we define them using parentheses, like normal brackets, and then we have sets. These ones, we also define them using curly brackets, but the only difference with this guy and the dictionary is that dictionaries, we have key and a value. So each data or item that you add in a dictionary, it has to have a key and a value, like that. So this is the main difference between these guys. And of course, all that we have written here should be a valid code and should work. Like so. So I can even choose to print a dictionary. This guy there, we should get that value out, whatever we have put there, because they're all correct, So we can work, and of course we saw like all these, they have different things that you can do to them. You can add item to list, you can add item to dictionaries, you can target a specific item in a list or in a set, whichever. But of course for sets, we said this is a special kind of sequence in a sense that it only allows unique values in it. So you cannot have duplicates in a set. But of course, yeah, you can still use slicing to access. Remember slicing. So if I wanted to access any item in a list, I can really point it out. Remember the indexes or indices starts from 0. So this number 4 here will be at position 0 to the last one. I don't know which count that is. Yeah, but actually you can use slicing to do that. Yeah, so that's in summary what we talked when we are talking about sequences. One more thing that I should not forget is the fact that you can actually nest these guys. So I can have a list, maybe a list of data, then I can have multiple, I can nest, or I can add other lists, and then we say that this ability to add other lists inside the list is what makes it possible for us to work with tabular data. Because in this list, then I can define that, or I can refer to that as a specific row of data. The same goes to that guy, the same goes to that guy. So these could be different types of row in a given data set. And then, yeah, you can point out any item in there using that concept of row and column. So each data can be accessed. So if this was 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this was 5, 6, 7, 8, and then this was 9, 10, 11, and 12, like so. So these, we can think of them as different rows in a table. And then if we want to access any item in a row, then or in this table, then you can say, okay, which row are you targeting? I'm targeting this row. Okay, so because this is the first row, then it is at index 0. Okay, and actually you can do that, because if we are to do data 0, if you want to print that, sorry for that, data 0, let me remove this guy, then we should really get that first, because it is at row number 0. Then, okay, so you are targeting row 0, and then which column? Column number 2, maybe. So this is column number 1, number 2. Okay, because this is Python, then this column number 1 will be 0, column number 2 will be 1. So then I can do, okay, give me the record at row number 0, and then column value 1, which is actually the second column. So that means we should get 2 printed out as our response, like that. So this is how we can access data in a nested collection, like that. Yeah. So then I think, like, when was this? Was it on Monday? Yes, on Monday. We talked about program flow control. It was on Saturday, actually. Yeah, program flow control. And we said, the key point that we said here is that program is always executed from the first line to the last one, top to bottom. That's the principle. You have your line of code here. This will be executed first, then that, then that. Unless you do something. If you don't do anything, when you run this code, always that's how it will run. Don't expect magic here. It will execute the first code at line number 1, then code at line number 8. That will be the last one to be executed. And so this is how program flow works. But now with any programming language, and in particular Python for our case here, it is possible to change this. It is possible to tell program, you know what, at some point in my code, I want you to behave differently a bit. Yes, maybe stop here for some time, do this piece of code for 10 times, and then go proceed with whatever it is that you want to run. Or sometimes, maybe at a certain portion of your code, you might have several instructions to be executed, but you want them to be executed depending on some condition. Then control structures allows us to do that. And of course, we talked about two types of control structures, the decision structures and the loop structures. Decision structure, now this actually refers to if. So I want my program to print, like I have a number, maybe number. We use number often time because it's easier. I have number 8. Why do I have 8 like this? Let me use another number, 11. So we have number is equal to 11, and then if we check if number is less than 20, maybe we want to do something. Maybe print. What am I printing? Print hello, like so. Yeah, so we want to do it this way. So control structure allows, because if I do not do this, for example, if my print was there, let me comment this guy so that does not affect our flow. If I run this code, always will get print like hello printed out, like no matter how many times you run that, because this is how a program is expected to perform. You start from the first line, whatever comes in the next line, just do it. But if you want it to behave differently, then do something else. So in that case, if I want to print this guy, then I must have a control structure, which is this case a decision structure, that will print this number or this string hello only when number is less than 20. In this case, of course, this should work because 11 is less than 20. But if I had 110 there, then this should not work. I should not get printed like hello printed out because the condition here fails. So decision structures actually gives us that power. It allows us to alter or to change the flow of a program. And of course, for decision structure, the way it works is it decides which instructions to execute depending on the condition. So if the program comes, you have different types of conditions, or instructions. The decision structure will allow the program to choose one out of those instructions to execute depending on the condition. But also the loop structure, these ones will repeat, doing the same thing. So say you want to run this code, print hello 10 times, then you can do that. So okay, I can have a simple statement for I in range. Maybe we use range oftentimes to establish that the number of count you want to repeat this. How many times do you want to repeat? I want to repeat it 10 times. So in that case, I just do like that. I want to repeat it 10 times. Then what do you want to do? I want to print hello. Let me not write that. I want to print hello. Let me remove this guy. So I want this like hello to be printed 10 times, like so. So if you count this guy, you should definitely get that. And of course, you can even add some other cool stuffs there. I can pass I there, and then to allow it to show me the number. So I should, okay, 0, 1, 2. Okay, if I want it to start from 1, then definitely I should plus 1 there each time, to get 1, 2, 3 up to 10. So it works like that, with the loop structure. So in this case, you see, because if I had print this hello guy there, it will just be printed 1. But with the loop structure now, it allows us to repeat that instruction the number of times that we wanted. So that's all about program flow control. The presentations and everything else is really available on Moodle, so you guys should be able to access it. If you haven't been able to do so, please just drop a message on the coding channel, and then Gladness and the other guys will just jump to support you and help make sure that you get that information. And then we also talked about input output as in a very special way, because we have been using print statement for so long. It was important for you guys to understand why is it there, but also to know that there is another function called input, which is the opposite of print. And the input allows us to read data from the keyboard. So both print will print data to the shell, but actually input will read data from the shell. So print input will ask you to type something, and of course you will type that thing, and then it will be applicable or used in your program. So that's what we saw. And of course you had an assignment for this. I think we did part of it together. But yeah, so at least most of you guys, you're able to try this out. We still encourage people to continue trying these things out, and then ask questions if you can on Slack, so that we can give you the support that you need to make sure that you understand these concepts. And then yet we also talked about modules. So we said modules, this is module and functions, they're somewhat similar, but module is a bit bigger in a sense that it allows you to break your program into smaller programs or sub-programs that does something specific. But of course, one key thing about modules is that they must be Python files, really valid Python files with some valid Python code in them. But actually the thing about modules is the fact that you can call this code in another file. So you can import a module to that other program. And then today we'll see a bit of modules, other modules that we can use in our code. So you can actually import modules and use them or use whatever that module offers in your code. And of course, with modules now, we started to see the power of us using what other people have created for our own use. Because sometimes your program might want to say, like I use an example of, to play an audio or maybe to draw a graph. If we are to write code to draw a graph, then probably your program would have had an extra of close to 2,000 lines of code. Just to, if you were to write your own code for doing that. But other people, they have written modules to save you time. So instead of you sitting down there, figuring it out how to draw lines, or even if you know that, but still you have to write the code, you can just import what others have written and then use that in your code. But also we saw about functions. We also said that function actually, they are similar to modules in the sense that they also allows us to break our program into smaller chunks or smaller blocks that we can reuse. But of course, functions, you don't need to import them. You just use it because you create functions, or you can use other functions which are available. But the idea of a function is the fact that this is a block of code that was organized to perform a certain thing. We gave an example of maybe you write a function to calculate an area of a figure. Then the codes that you're going to include in that functions, they're all meant to help you calculate the area of a circle. Then you can call that function somewhere else and use that function for in some other parts of your program. And so so that's in a nutshell what we have covered so far. But again, if you want to access to this, we have all this information available. But for today, we have a few things to discuss. And of course, if you find it difficulty, which won't be difficulty, feel free to drop your concern or question on the chat, and then would love to respond to any questions or concerns that you guys might have. Yeah. So today we said that we're going to read data from file, because as of now, of course, all the data that we've been pushing to the program really comes from input. The input thing that we learned, when was it? On Monday. Yeah, so that's the only way we have been really reading data to our application or to our program. But of course, input is not the only way for you to send data to your program. Oftentimes, data will come from file sources, or it could even be database. We are not going to cover those things because in most cases, you may not necessarily need to access database. And actually, you will not need to do so, at least for your application. Like based on your profession, then you may not necessarily need to have a script that connects to your database. But again, if you want to reach that level, if you want to also do that, maybe you want to write a script that does that, you have an understanding, the basic understanding of Python. So adding that up to your knowledge then shouldn't be a hard thing, because at least now you have an idea of how Python works. Like so. But of course, as I said, like oftentimes data will be coming from files, and then we'll be using this that data for some operations in your code. But of course, Python as a programming language, it has so many ways of reading data. Like you can open a file, any type of file that you would want. Maybe open an Excel file, open a document file, open a PDF file. You can do all that stuff. But of course, some of these approaches of opening a file and maybe working with file, they're a bit complex. Some, they're so straightforward, very simple to use and to work. Because at the end of the day, what you want to do really, you have some data stored somewhere in a certain file. You just want to read that file into your program and then capture that data and use that data for whatever it is that you want to achieve. Now, why should that process be so complex? Why should you use so complex procedures to do that? Now, because of that, there are options or alternatives that can really help you to open a file, read data that you want to, and use that data. And of course, in our case now, we'll mostly focus on CSV files or CSV data. This is comma separated values. You might have used them. They're the same as Excel data. It's just like we have data in tabular form. But the only difference with CSV, we'll also see how to do that, is that, they're just simple textual data. They are not, because you cannot open, take an example for Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel file. You cannot open Microsoft Excel file with a notepad, for example. Why? Because it was designed to work with Microsoft Office or Microsoft Word applications. So that's the only application which can open a Microsoft Word document. And of course, even that, it depends also on which version that you're using. If you're using Microsoft of 2003, probably you might not be able to open some files of Microsoft Office of 2016 or the like. So you need that special software to do that. But with CSV, you don't need to do that because they're just simple text file separated by commas or some other characters, but the common one is commas. And now because of them being that simple, then we can easily work with them. And now the focus of actually us really teaching you guys is to expose you to doing some data analysis and helping you guys to import data, play around with that data, maybe plot something with that data, or you can even do some statistics. And this is actually what you'll be doing as part of your projects, like mini project that we carry out from actually today up to Friday. So that's the main idea, because we believe that that's probably it's going to be so beneficial in your line of work. And of course, you'll also see how probably maybe Python can be used. We might talk about that maybe on Friday, or if not Saturday, about like how really Python can be used to do some predictions and so on and so forth, which could also be even so beneficial to you as well. But of course, for us to read data now, we are not going to write this logic for reading a file, because definitely that's going to be so many lines of code. And why should we reinvent the wheel? While there are modules or libraries out there which can help us to do that. And of course, in a special way, we're going to use a library called Pandas, or a module called Pandas to do that. And of course, the reason behind is that Pandas, apart from it allowing us to read files, it also gives us so many other tools that we can use to play around with this data, maybe even plot this data and do some analysis with this data. That's why it's a very, very cool library to use. But of course, just know that there's so many libraries out there that you can use to import data, use data in your application, or maybe play around with the data, and then you can do some cool stuff with that data. Those libraries are there. It's just for you to be an open-minded person and reach out for these resources, search on Google, for different types of libraries that you can use to play around with your data. But of course, the key idea is the fact that all of these libraries, when you are using them, they all use the same principles that we have covered. You'll find lists in there. You'll find tuples in there. You'll find variables named in different ways in there. You'll find different functions. You'll find functions passing variables, all the concepts that we have learned so far. But of course, there are also other libraries that we might use them. Of course, Panda, of course, Numpy, and scikit-learn libraries. So these ones, you might want to install them in your computer. And if you remember correctly, we did this the other time. I think I have these guys already installed, but let me quickly go. So remember, if you're using Sony, then you just go to tools and then manage packages, and then in here you can type your whatever name. So if I want to install Numpy, I just type there Numpy, find it. So I already have it installed. That's why Sony is telling me. Probably even I think Numpy comes by default. So it comes is like that. Or if you have you want to install Pandas, again, just type Pandas there, search. I already have it installed in my computer. Or else you can do scikit-learn, like so. Let me find, yeah, so I also have this guy installed in my computer. So the way this, I think, Learn is uploading the slides. If they're not yet on Moodle already, they should be on Moodle, yeah. So you'll have access to this. Actually, I can even post these guys on the channel so that you see them. So we have Pandas. Let me go there. So we have Pandas. That is one. We also have Numpy. and then we have Sanskrit learn library. Yeah, so just have those guys installed your machine. For today, we'll only be playing around with pandas, but of course, as we go on, we'll mostly be playing with panda. Remember, you have already installed a matplotlib, the one that we used for plotting charts yesterday. So that one is still useful, and we are going to use that. So now I just wanted you to understand it. So we can read files, data from files. And of course, Python provides us with different ways to do that. And there are so many libraries out there or tools that we can use for that. Some are complex, some are so basic. We don't want to complicate things here. We just want things that, we don't want to focus on these technicalities. We want to be able to use the tool to really do our work and not hustle our way out just to read a file, while your sole purpose maybe might be that data and not the way that you are reading that data. But of course, we have said you're going to put our focus mostly on CSV because for the purpose of this training, and of course, as of the way we thought, we think that teaching you this very basic way that you can use Python, particularly working with data, could somehow inspire you to understand this very basic concept, which are so beneficial and they apply across everything else that you're going to learn or use in Python. So we'll be working with data, but tabular data, because we are going to do some analysis here with data to do some visualization and so on. But of course, we said we are going to use modules, our libraries for that, and pandas is the choice library for our choice, and that's what we're going to use. But before we go there, I want to take you guys a bit of like working with CSV file. How can you create this CSV file? Because for some of you, maybe it might be a bit challenging, but it's something which is very, very simple. One thing that you must know, as I said, is the fact that CSV files, these can be created using any text editor because they're just plain text. You'll also see that because we can even open one in Thorny and then you'll see how that data looks. But of course, if you are having Microsoft Excel or spreadsheet program on your computer, you can even use Google Sheet or whichever one. It's have the features of saving data in a CSV format, which you can then open it with any text editor. But the idea behind CSV file in this case is because they can really allow us to put our tabular data and store it in a CSV file and then load that data in our program. And of course, even the data that we are going to give you access to, we actually not giving you access to, we are going to point you to almost all the data that we'll be working with, download it, it'll be in a CSV format. So that's why understanding this is very, very important. But actually, the idea here again is to you create a file and then you just save it. But the most important thing is for you to put this file where you can access it in your program. Basically, if the file is inside your computer, wherever it is, you can access it. But we prefer to keep things very simple. You just put the file in your project file. You'll also see that. I'll actually demo this right here. But of course, in some cases, you might actually have to download data from online. We'll show you the site today and a few examples of how to go about that. But of course, you can even download data directly from Python, but we do not want to complicate things. What we really want for you guys to understand, at least to this point, is the fact that you can load a file from your computer and then read whatever that file has in your code and then work with that data in your code. So to do that, of course, I had this file, but actually I'll create a new one. I created this very simple file called a data.csv. And then with this file, actually what is happening here is that we have a column for name, column for sex, age, and height. And this is what I say, like oftentimes, maybe in your line of work, you might be working with data which is in this form, or sometimes it could even be images, like maybe you need to process some images to do some machine learning and prediction and so. But that could be, like a topic of itself. Maybe we might even need 3 weeks to talk about that, working with image and doing some image predictions and so on. But of course, oftentimes you'll be working some data in a table like this, and maybe you want to, process this data, analyze this data, do some statistics, maybe find mean, find whatever it is that you want to do with statistics, or plot something out of this data. That might be the thing that you do oftentimes. And even the data set that we're going to show you guys, you'll see that a lot of problems are posted or shared every single day, for people to work on them and if you are in a medical field and you see that this data is related to medicine, then you might be the right person to work with that data. You use your Python skills there to respond to those challenges or problem and provide solutions with the knowledge that you already have in Python. So this is a normal Excel data. I can actually create a new file. Let me quickly up. Yeah, so this is a new file. It could be maybe I don't know. But we can even have country, country, like country name. Remember that the time we had population stuff, population, like so. And so we have country and then we have population, and then you can have, I don't know, maybe here, and then let's say like maybe if it's Tanzania, Tanzania, then 202, like so, and then 2012. Like so, again, Tanzania had something else, yeah, so just take that guy. Population was whatever number that was, in millions. It's just dummy number. Then we have 54 something, and these are just dummy numbers. And so, so this is a sample data. Of course, in your case, that could be something different with so many other columns, like so. Could have so many other columns, and then it's definitely going to have so many other rows. It could even be up to 1,000 rows or even 50,000, depending on the data or the size of data that you're going to work with. Python can really handle all that stuff. Yeah, so if I just save this as a normal file, because I'm using Excel editor now, if I save this as a normal file, then it will be an Excel file. But to save it as a CSV file, save as, I want to save this in my project folder, because by default you see it's XLS, this extended Excel file, but I want to change the type to CSV file, comma separated values, and then maybe I don't know, population, just call it that way, population, like so, population.csv. Then save that data. Yeah, so that data is now saved as a CSV. And of course, CSV files, even if in Excel, they have to be very simple, just data. If you put formulas in here and stuff, those guys, they won't be captured, because those features are specific for Excel. But for CSV, you just want to have data in columns, like that. And then if I go back to Thorny, let me take this guy up there. So if I go back to Thorny, close this guy, and then file open, I just created that file called population.csv. Of course, by default, Thorny identifies Python in Python family files. So you have to tell it I want all files like that for you to be able to choose that file. Then you can open. So you see, that's why it's called CSV. It's comma separated values. So all the column data you see, we get it in this style, like that. So you have country, population here, Tanzania. So this is the first row, the second row, the third row. And now the idea of us learning about lists now comes to, being practical here, because you can think of this guy. If I were to put square brackets there, then that's the first row. If I put another bracket there, then that's the second row, So like that. That's why we say the concept of nested list really allows us to work with tabular data. So in this case, of course, this will not work because these are strings and then I had to put them in quotes and so, but I'm just giving an example here. So we have the first row, which is country, population, and here, of which you can think of it as our table headers and so. Then we have Tanzania, which is the second row. Then another Tanzania, that's a third row and so on. And of course, you can have a million of these guys in there. But so in a very simple way, that is how you can create. A file. Actually, I did not import this. So what I did, so you see, you can open a file, a folder where you have stored everything that you have. So I had a project folder where I'm keeping all my other files. You see, I have my test.py, hello, functions, others, all these are the files that we've been working with. This is where I've saved my Python files. So in the same folder, when I was in Excel, even this one, so I can go save as. You see, I'm actually pointing to the same folder. It's called coding for health, like that. So I'm pointing to the same folder and then I save that file. So I really did not import or export this file to Thorny file, but when I was saving the Excel file or the CSV file, I specifically chose the folder where I've stored my Python files, the files that I'm accessing them via the Thorn. And now when I went back to Thorny now, it's simply like, okay, you go file open. So where am I saving all my file? I see here. And the point that I said, you see, in my case, I'm not sure if on Windows this is the same case, but I believe it will still be the same case. By default, Thorny identifies only Python, or if you're using the extension PYW, that also works. That's why you see these files are the ones which are active, but I cannot choose these ones. So to make these as a file selectable, I have to change the file type or the filter and say, okay, just allow all files to be selectable. That's why you see now these guys that have been enabled here. So I can choose this guy and open that guy in my code like that. So I won't save this because it's going to affect my file like so. So this is the file and how it was when we define. So the same thing goes. So if let's say I add here, let's say I add another data here, like that. Let's do this way, like that. Maybe this is Kenya, good friends, like that. And then maybe this is whatever, maybe 2014. And then we save this guy. We have updated that. Now we go to Excel, our other Excel there. Actually, this one I have to load it again. I have to open it. And now, if it was in Excel, Excel automatically picks that up. It automatically picks that up. I'm sorry. Where have I saved my work? No. I'm testing something there. Let me close this guy. Let me do that. I see if Sony is not saving. It was actually supposed to pick that. Am I opening the Python file? I'm actually not wasting my time here. So this is CSV file. Yeah, so let's finish. Let me see if I opened it. It has not picked my value. Has Sony saved my data? This is strange. Let me open this guy and let's see if I cannot edit. Yeah, it has not saved. Actually, it was just fooling me. Yeah, but actually you can save this data and then it will just load, any time that you want to use it. So let's not waste time in that. Yeah, so I just wanted to have a feeling of how you can really work with CSV, how you can create your own CSV file, but oftentimes you'll find yourself that you have to create your files, or maybe sometimes download the files. And of course, in our case, let me see if we have access to that guy before I give you guys a short break. Yeah. We'll come and see these data sets here. We'll just pick one. So all of these we've filtered data that has to do with health. Of course, the site Kaggle, actually, they usually provide a lot of challenges that people can do. Most of these challenges, actually not all of them, but most of them, they come with price. So when you do it and then you submit, some people, they get mad, like 15K USDs, and so depending on what the challenge was. So you find different teams or individuals, they get to work on these challenges here. There's some about COVID-19 and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a good place actually to really come and explore things. That's why now you understand how to use Python, maybe even to read data. You can even now start to take part in these challenges or provide help that is related to healthcare and so. So we'll talk about this towards the end. We mentioned comma-separated values as one way or one type of file that we can work with, or as one type of file that you can store your data and use it in your program. And of course, even Excel data, Python has libraries, even with pandas. You can read such files into your program. But of course, some of that data will really complicate things. And in most cases, when we are processing data in Python or with pandas, actually, all the data that either you will download or maybe use yourself, you'll find oftentimes is in CSV format. That's why we thought of this could be the best or an ideal type of file for us to demo how to to do that in Python. But of course, it's important to know that there are libraries out there that you can use, but knowing how to import libraries and use library is a good thing, or it's a knowledge that you must have. But of course, almost all the libraries, even pandas and so many other libraries that are out there, they all have some instruction on how to install it, how to set it, and different functionalities that they offer for you to use in your code. Yeah, so try to ensure you guys you can have a very simple tabular data like this one, and data. You can play around, you can save it in your Python project and then use that data. So of course, next we'll be looking on how we can do this. We have that CSV data. How do I load that data in my program? And try a few things as a fresh start. Because I know like today you'll have a few examples to work on, but of course tomorrow we'll now start to get deeper and deeper and deeper into these, particularly even the assignments that you get or the projects that you guys are going to work on. Yeah, so creating a CSV file is as simple as it can be. Like in this case, we had this Excel program with the data that we wanted, and then we save that data in our project, like Thorny project file, so that we can easily access it. But as I said, you can store your CSV file anywhere in your computer, but sometimes that comes with challenges because you really have to get the full path to that file. So if you save the file maybe in downloads, then you'll have to, if you're using, depending on which operating system you're using, if it's Windows, then you have to do the C, the colon, slashes folder, slash folder to that location. So sometimes that could be challenging, or, but depends on what you really want to achieve. But the easiest way is any file that you're going to work with, just put it in the same file as the file that you'll be reading that file. So in this case, let's say if I wanted to use test to read my file, then I'll make sure that the CSV file is in the same folder as test, so that I can easily read that file into my program. And so, yeah, so we have a few ways of doing this, and because we are going to use Panda, and remember, Pandas, this is a library, or it's a module that you can use. And I showed that like the first thing that you have to do is really to import pandas into your program. And then remember, when we were talking about modules, we also touched that you can import module as you would want. Let me see if I can get my laser pen. So you can import a module as this, just import pandas. But sometimes you may want to give it an alternative name that you want to refer to in your program or in your code. Then in that case, you can just call import pandas, and then you pass in the as keyword there, and then whatever short name that you want to use or to refer to this library in your code. But one important thing about pandas is the fact that the panda module, inside it has a function. Now you remember functions when you talk about function. It has a function called read CSV. And this function actually allows you to read data from the CSV file. And the way this function works is it takes in a parameter, remember parameters, any values that you pass to a function, and which is the name of the file that you want to read. And a good example could be like this. So if we had defined, we had imported pandas using PD as our alias, then we can just do PD for panda there, dot read CSV, and then we give it the file name that we want to read. And then once, of course, you have read that file, what will happen next is that you're just starting to work with that data, because remember, CSV file that we'll be working with oftentimes, they come as tabular data, and of course the read CSV expect that data to be in some form of tabular fashion. So it will convert that data into lists that we can really play around with as we would normally do. But of course, you can even visualize or do some analysis of that data. So we have an example here and then I'll go and talk about the data and show you a bit more with the data that we have already here. So this is a very simple and straightforward example of what could be. So in this case, remember, I had this the CSV file here called data.csv. It has this data defined in there. So first, I just import pandas as PD. I just want to use that as a short, but you can even import pandas p, or you can just import pandas and so on. And of course, I'm importing another library called matplotlib. Remember, we use this for plotting. Python actually really depends on this module, this library or module for plotting. So even if you have Panda and so, still to show the chart, you'll have to use the matplotlib package for that. Yeah, and then of course, in this case now, what we are doing, we are just reading. Remember that function I said, read CSV. So we are calling pd.read.csv, and then we give it the file name. Of course, in my case, now, if you go and check, let me go to file, open. I have my file called hello. Let me cancel this guy, add my code here. This guy there. I had my file called hello. And then the data.csv as my data file is actually in the same folder as this guy. So hello and data.csv, they're all in the same folder, this guy and this guy. So this makes it easy. I can just write the name of that file to open it. But otherwise, if I'd stored it somewhere else, then it would have been necessary for me to have a full path, like where exactly is that file, and then paste that file path there for my program to locate that file. But to make it simple for you, just make sure that the data file is in the same folder or same location as the file that is opening it. That will make it easy. Of course, when you are building a bigger project, this should not be the case, because sometimes maybe if you want to build a solution that other people can use, then definitely you won't expect these people, each one, to be posting the files or moving the files to the program folder. So they should be able to locate the files from wherever they could be, and so on, like that. Yeah. So yeah. Now in this case, yeah, I don't need to open that. So we have, actually I can open so that we have it side by side here. Let me open the CSV file there, that guy. So this is the file that has our data. It's similar to what we have here, 1417, like 1427, the same data. Actually, you can have more rows, more columns, whichever way that you want. But this is a CSV data. All our data is comma separated in this case. And then we go to hello.py. So basically, it's the same example as this one, actually. So what we are doing here, we are importing the pandas module because it will allow us to, it comes with a function which can help us to read the file. And then we also import matplotlib. Now these two should give you an idea that, okay, you can import as many modules as you want. We just use import like that. So you can do that for many modules as you would want, like that. And then since we have decided to access it as PD, then here we are calling the PD dot read. So this is a function that is inside these pandas. It's called read CSV, and then you give it a name of the file that you want to refer to. And of course, now when you are having things like that, you can start to have an idea, because I could have a variable there called my file. Then I can put this guy there, data.csv, like so. And then here, instead of pushing the file name, I could put their file, and then now, since you have started to see this, you might have files in different locations or even in the same folder, but you want your program to load different data files. Then instead of you attaching your file name there, you could even use input there. I would just want someone to write a file name, the file name. So, but I won't go to this fast. Let us just do it fast as this. So we read and then we give it the file name. I'm doing it this way because I know data.csv is in the same file as hello.py, like so. And then what next? Now we have the data. So what happens when pandas read the file? It returns what we call the data frame, which is basically, you can think of it as just a nested list. But this data frame is a bit special in a sense that it offers also some other functionalities, to use, so that you can play around with the data that you have, or the data that you just read from the file. So what we want to do with this data frame, actually we are telling it just plot. What do you want to plot? I want to plot a scatter plot in this case, and then okay, so what will be the column that you want to access on the x-axis, and what will be on the y-axis. So now let me actually comment this guys first before we reach there. Yeah. So to that point, actually we have read the data. Let me see if I can view the variables like so. So to that point, we have read the data, and of course, if we are to use print, remember our famous print guy, data frame. You know, we can also do that. You see, so it is giving us our data. So Python has actually read the data into our program. And then that being the case, then I can even start to point specific, columns in there, maybe name, like so. You see, so we're getting the names. Of course, this index is just for counting. Don't be pause advising. So I can also choose sex if I wanted to, the sex column, and so. So I wanted you to get this idea so that we can target specific column of data, and that's why using a module like Panda really comes with so much power, so much I don't know, like tools that you can use to easily play around with this data. Because if we are to use the normal list as they are, without using a tool like Panda, then probably getting a specific column of data maybe would have been a bit challenging. But with Pandas, you just call it, and then it gives you objects, or how should I put it, like constructs that you can use with easy, to access or manipulate your data. So in this case, of course, we have read our data from the CSV file, and then we have our data now in Python in our code, and then we can print different columns of such. So I wanted to show you that now with DF we can point specific columns, because actually next here, in this line of code here, what we are doing, we are plotting, then we are telling that we want to plot scatter. Remember now, plot, this is actually a function now, and then we are passing in parameters. Remember the parameters, and you remember that other option, you can pass parameters, with names like this. So we are telling, okay, assign scatter to kind, age to X, height to Y, and color, to red, and so like that. So this now will prepare Panda to to do the plotting, and so. And then of course, for the graph to be shown, we really have to call back the plot. That's why we have matplot there, because this is the guy that will show that that plot thing, the chart, and so in that sense, yeah. So after doing that, then we can just run this code, and then of course we are getting the scatter plot for age and height as the value for X age, and Y the height, and these are the different values that we are plotted based on the data that we had. And of course, you can clearly see that when we had set, that is Hussein, I think, then we had how much? 100. So this is actually here, 30 and 100, like so at this point, like that. So this can be done, but of course, I also wanted to show you another example of how this can be done. But again, just like know that we are going to work on these examples more heavily from tomorrow. I wanted you guys to have an idea that we are going to use Pandas library. There's this read method that we can use. You can give it a file, and then you can read data. So this is something that you should really try today, even with the data that you might try and download, and then play around with it and have a feeling of how to read data. And so maybe tomorrow we might try a number of other useful functions that will be helpful to you guys, and you'll see how to play around with data and maybe do some statistics and so on. But it's very, very important for you to understand this concept of CSV files, how you can read them to your program. Maybe you can target a specific column, or maybe you can actually do whatever it is, whatever type of charts that you want. And of course, actually, most of those examples you'll start to see them from tomorrow. But you can go ahead and try. Just feel free. You can just go ahead and try, because Pandas, I will share a resource to you, like the documentation that Panda has, because even for tomorrow and up to Friday and Saturday, we cannot cover everything that Pandas has to offer, but there's quite a lot of stuff that you can do. the key thing here that we wanted you guys to understand is the fact that there's a tool called pandas. There's a module called pandas, which is one out of so many beautiful modules out there that you can include in your program. But you should first know how to include a module in your program, and then how to access that module. Then these modules, they come with data, they come with functions. Then you have to understand what a function is. You have to understand that you can pass actually values to a function. So all these concepts, you really had to understand them before even starting to use these tools. But as of today, really the goal was for you guys to know we are going to use Panda. Then you can read it. You can create your own CSV file. Very simple. Even if, let's say, you have an Excel file, as long as it does not have some specific formats or maybe some formulas in there, if it's just data, you can save that file as just normal CSV and have it save it in the place where you have all your Thorny files, so that you can easily access it like that. And then now start to see, maybe you can plot different things there. I'll share with you like different charts that you can draw, but of course expect to see us discussing about those mostly, many of them from tomorrow, with the data that you guys will have. And of course we'll pick a few data, sample data to play around with. Yeah, so you can do that. But now let me quickly do it like this. So let me go back to, let me escape here so that I can go to Kaggle. Let me put this guy down like so. So Kaggle, actually this site you can all go. Let me drop this on the channel. You can all go there and then access, all these different sorts of data that you can play around with. Yeah, so for example, maybe I want to, what do I want to do? Maybe I want to do COVID-19 health data set. So I can just go to this guy, open it. I'll get some more information about this data set, and so on. But of course, I can also download, and of course, we'll get to see like what columns does it have, the column names and so on, country, I'll call it whatever it is and stuff. And then, yeah, you can, all the way here, you can actually download that data, So you can download that data. Now, for you to actually download this data, if it's the first time, it will ask you to maybe log in, because they just need to, I don't know, track people, or maybe to have your information. So you'll be required to log in, which is just a simple thing. Just go ahead and do that so that you can download this data. So of course, this is the name that it wants to save with, but I'll just rename it to data2 for simplicity, data2, like that. So I'll save, remember, I've saved just data2. Yeah, so I have data2. I have downloaded that file from there, and then of course I can go back to Thorny. And actually, when I download it, actually I specified the folder where I've kept my Thorny file. But you can, in your case, maybe it might go straight to downloads folder. So make sure you go there, you copy that file, and then drop it in the Thorny folder. Yeah, so I can choose to open this guy. So I have data2 is there. Again, I must change to all types so that is enabled. Then open. So we have this. Of course, don't mind it. I can easily also open that using Excel, I think. So I should also be able to go there, open that data, and then data2. We should have this data loaded actually. Yeah, so you see we have all this data loaded in there, countries and so on and so forth. So much data to to play around with, and so many columns in there. Yeah. Now I have that data there. So this is Sony. Let me cancel this guy. Why is it doing that to me? Yeah, let me close this guy because we have seen it already. Let me also close this guy. So if I were to use the same example here, right now I have data2. So first I'll just disable this guy. Then we open data2 like so. So I open data2, and then let's see what happens. Will that be loaded? Yes, something has happened, but of course we can print that df as we did the other time. Load that. Let me quickly clear this guy so that we can run and see it in a clean sheet, like so. So we have countries. It actually does not display all the columns because of space, and so it summarizes it. So we have a few columns and a few rows here. So you see country, Afghanistan, Albania, Nigeria, and so on, and some other data as well there. So that means we have loaded this information. Then if I were to do maybe just print country like so, then I should be able to point. Actually, this is capitals. Let me try this. See if it's smart. No, you see, it does not find that file. The name can't, because the country there is capital C, I think. So we should be able to load this guy, yeah. So the names of the column really matters. The names of the column really, really matters. You must really know exactly how the columns have been named. So in this case, countries, capital C, alcohol, and so on and so forth. So all these, the way they're named, you must clearly know them, because that's how they will be referred to. And of course, by default, pandas treat the first row as the header for your table, the column names. And so, yeah, so we have that. Then it means if this is the case, we can even now start playing around. So what if I want to, let me close this guy actually. What if I wanted to maybe print a scatter plot for eggs and what? Fish and seafood, like so. I think we should be able to do that. Eggs, fish, seafood, like that. Let me copy this. The other one I can easily type. Yeah, so we can even try and do that. So let me try and print this guy. Let's see what we get. Yeah, so we are getting these numbers because those are the values under that column. That being the case, then we can even do some scatter plot. So now you can actually target a specific column in that data. Just go straight to that particular data in a column and then play around with this. And then later on, maybe from tomorrow, we'll see now. You can target that data, print a bar chart, maybe find mean, do what, all those cool stuff that you can do with data, and then do some other plottings and so. Yeah, so in this case, if I were to update this guy, then let me comment this one. So I know I wanted maybe for my X, I want to have eggs and seafood, and then for the Y, I just want to be a scatter plot of these two, and so this is X. Let me try and do maybe blue and see what happens. Yeah, so I change the color for the scatter plot and so, and then let me show. So we want to do the scatter thing there, and let's run the code. You see, so we are getting this, yeah. So we have that scatter plot as there, and then of course from there we can do some linear regression, and so these are different cool stuff, because I know whether you are, it doesn't matter which profession you're doing, as long as we are dealing with data. At some point, there are some cool stuff that you can do with data. So even for you guys, let's say if you had not invested much time in doing some data analysis based on the data that is actually produced in your field of profession, then it might be a good idea to build some interest in that area as well. So there's so much medical data that is produced that maybe if it is properly analyzed could yield some very beautiful results, and might help us to prevent certain things, or maybe solve some some issues and problems and so. But now visualizing data like this also is really helpful, and it makes a lot of sense for you guys now to start working with data. And of course, as I said, even when we look at Kaggle as a site or as a platform, they provide, they list a lot of challenges that let me see if it's let me see the compete part now, just to showcase what happens here. Yeah, so you see, these are some of the competition that are there, and you see the price that is listed there. So some are 50K USD, 25K. So all these is actually, this is data. There's nothing it's data in tabular form like that, and then you just download that data. I've just picked that one for example. Download that data and then do whatever it is that they want you to achieve, and they give so much very beautiful details that you can actually work with. Some of these use complex machine learning, and so, and you see again, the data is given as CSV here, so that's why it was good for us to talk about this, for you guys to have an idea. But what I'm trying to show here is the fact that there are so many issues out there. Some they are local, some they are global issues, that if we have an understanding of how Python works as a tool in these building blocks, and then see better ways in which we can apply Python to solve this. This could, maybe be a way for you guys to also chip in and offer your expertise in understanding this data, because as for me, I might, even the other time, I could not even pronounce some of the things, some of the column names. Why? Because I'm not in the medical field profession. I'm not a health professional. I'm just a software engineer. But you guys, when you see if it is C or L, or if you see if it's CP, you clearly know what is happening, what this CP means in the medical or healthcare field. And then it means now much of this data will make very, very clear sense to you guys, which is why it makes you the best candidates to have this knowledge of using Python, or maybe if it's R, but in this case specifically Python, to work with this data, to play around with this data, and work on these solutions. And maybe whatever it is that you work on, apart from you winning the prize, you might also play the role of really helping, whether it's a community, your community, global community, or whichever community it is, then this might help. That's why even this course was brought up, to really expose you guys to the knowledge of these things, and for you now to start seeing things in a different perspective, and find yourself or see yourself as someone who has a role to play in addressing these challenges. But of course, where we are going, data will be everything. So whether in medicine or whichever field it is, it's important for us to have data analysis skills, or even data visualization skills, to help us make better decisions in our lines of work. So what we have done, so like in this case, we downloaded that one file, the CSV file. I only named it as data2, but actually it has a very descriptive name. You can leave the name as it is, as long as you remember to really put the name as it should be there. And then we start. We have been able now to plot this scatter plot using 2 columns. But of course, there are different types of plot. You can draw lines here, stacked, then stacked area charts. You can do multiple line graphs, and so on. Like a lot of stuff you can do with the data that is that you have. And now this is the data that you have downloaded. I believe maybe even you guys, you might have also your own data, and so on. So that might also be good for you to play around with that data. And so, and of course, even for others who might be doing research and they need to do some data, I know most guys, they jump to using SPSS because those tools, they are kind of like ready-made. But sometimes you might need to do something which is very specific in your research or in data that you're working with. Then it might be a good idea to come and build your own custom solution, very simple script that does some specific things to cater your needs. That way, you'll achieve your goals faster and be more productive in very, very short time. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to cover with you guys. But of course, at least for today, to introduce to you the fact that we'll be using some modules to work with data. And in particular, we're going to use Python. And I said there's a few modules I also shared on the channel. You can actually you can actually install those modules like the Numpy, scikit-learn, and pandas. Have them installed in your computer, because we'll be using not necessarily all of them at the same time. But of course, I know in the course of these 2 days, we'll definitely use at least all of them, or 1 or 2 of them in some of the examples that we'll be working with. But of course, I've also shared a link to Kaggle website, particularly the data section, where you can see lots of data. So here they put a lot of data, not necessarily in the medical field alone, but there's all different fields. So there's data for politics, data for anything, it's finance and so on. But you can filter data there, maybe for health, as we did, or if you want something to do, whichever thing, whether it's tuberculosis or heart disease, like the way we did the other time, you can get that data, download that data, and have a feeling. You just get a feeling of how this site work. You'll get more instructions on what to do next, particularly for the projects that you guys are going to work with. But the most important thing you have to know is that if you have a CSV file, Panda makes it so easy for you to import that data. Then once you have that data in your program, you can really do cool stuff to start printing data for specific column, or maybe do some plottings. You can even later we'll see like even doing, finding mean, finding variance, and like only maybe standard deviation and so on with this data that we import. So the point to take away for today's session is the fact that there are modules that we can use. They are powerful. They allow us to read data. And of course, since we can read data from the files, then we don't need to be passing our data every day via the input, or maybe hard coding or writing our data directly in our code, because that's not best practice. So we just create files or download files, and then load those files in our code, and use them for whatever purpose that you want. And of course, in this case, actually, I wanted to show you. I could have even used input like that, and then tell the user enter the file name like that that you want to load. So this could make our program out to be dynamic of sense. Then run. So you should ask me enter. So I know it's data2.csv like that. This should plot actually. So I can also do that. That's why now the input comes in handy. So if you want maybe to be loading different files, then you can also use this trick to do that, because it's not like you'll have, because if you don't allow user to type the file name, then definitely each time you want to use the file, you have to name it to data2.csv, which may not be a good thing. So you might want to use the file name as it is, then you can use a quick input, which will ask the user to type something, then they type, all the input that you type comes as strings that fits perfectly for a file name. Then just pass the file name, and then the rest can take place from there. So tomorrow we are going to build more on top of this. Of course, we'll definitely do a quick revision on this, and then we are going to build something more on top of that. But of course, I also know that there are people who are still struggling with some other things that we have covered so far, which is why we thought it might be a good idea to also give you, as you're thinking of this, because there's really no assignment for this guy. It's more for you to learn. You have access to slides. Just go through the slides. You can go back to this tutorial and then check it again to get some concepts. But of course, on top of that, we prepared a very simple exercise, which is copy paste and then see what happens. Then you can go an extra mile in that. I wanted to share that with you, and of course, I'll also put that on the channel. Let me also actually quickly do that right now so that you guys have access to it. It's just a simple document. What document is this, guys? We copied most of these questions from the internet, so you can even Google them, but I don't think you will get the answer, because even the place where we copied, they did not provide answers. So it's just, what is the output of this block of code? Simply copy, paste it on Thorny, see what it outputs, and then maybe think of it a bit like what is happening there. If you had a question, then it might even give you questions to ask. You can just drop them on the channel. Then we'll love to work with you guys. So all of these questions here, there's nothing that you have to write any code. Yes, there seem to be many, but actually everything that is here is for you guys to copy, paste it, see what the output is. Copy, paste, see what the output is, and then think about it a bit, because we try to touch a bit so many things. Like most of the concepts that we have covered, you'll see like there are functions here. You see there are loop structures, there's some if statements, there's some variables and some basic operator. There is even while, there's some set questions, there's some dictionary questions, there's some list questions. Just copy, code, paste, and see what it gives. But of course, as you do that, try to reason a bit, what's happening, because the knowledge that you're going to get out of this will help you to understand most of the things that we'll be talking about. Yes, it's the same thing that we have covered, but it will help you to learn more and understand this in even much details. And of course, that knowledge will add so much value, and it will make it so clear for the concept that we're going to cover, not actually to cover concept, but the stuff that we'll be working on from tomorrow onward. So I think that's all from my end.